I was registered for like a Jewish ways of life class tomorrow at 10 a.m., which is supposed to fulfill like a ethics perspective or something. But I read over the syllabus yesterday, and I think me being in that class will only end poorly. The question is poorly for who? Poorly for me or poorly for them? Just because it's like a lot of it was like, oh, right, essays, and there's different ways that people express or feel connected to their Judaism or something. The 8 a.m. philosophy class, I'm taking because I was taking, I think I talked about this on the previous stream. I was taking a Jewish ways of life class, and I went to the first class of it, and it wasn't great, I'll say. But it kind of seemed like liberal who... I'm very much not generalizing, stereotyping, trying to like overly grab a perspective on her, but it kind of felt like a little bit of a NIMBY professor, I'll say. And so, like, not at all in the normal NIMBY ways, but just more in like that vibe of the like the well-meaning person, but like not quite there, you know? Like how people will say like, I support Israel's right to exist, and you're like, okay, like, yeah, but you realize by saying this it's kind of undermining the other stuff, right? Like, you're saying I support Israel's right to exist, and then I also don't think Palestinians should be massacred. So it's like, okay, so are we saying that Palestinians should just become a part of Israel? Because, like, that's bad, you know? And it's like, I understand your perspective because you're a Jewish woman who's a rabbi and has gone to Israel multiple times, like 20-something times, I think she said. But, like, we gotta be thinking here, guys. Like, I know you have your heart probably in the right place, but I don't know. It was just kind of weird vibes for me. Let me pull up my notes from the class. I'm not going to show them, but let me pull out my notes from the class, see what I was writing down. The class was also really full. It was like there was like 30 people in the class. Like, they were running out of chairs. And it was also, I don't know. It was oddly full. Very, very oddly full. In a way that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Because it was like a lot of just like white people. And I mean, I guess I don't know if they're Jewish or not. But it's kind of like, I don't know. It just felt like something not great. And so this was, what was it? The first day was Tuesday, which was when there were first like talks of like a potential ceasefire coming through. But I have my own thoughts on the ceasefire and whatever. But I don't know. I didn't get a great vibe from it. She was really boring. She was really bored. I was bored. Like, even if I wasn't biased against her, she presenting the syllabus and everything, it was so boring. It was just like, you don't seem like you're going to be an interesting professor. I have down in my notes here, what did I wrote? I wrote, bro, even if I wasn't, I can't grab the ceiling from here, that's boring. Bro, even if I wasn't biased to be leaving this class, I would still be bored to tears from this. She has like barely showcased her personality or class day to day in a way that is palatable. Like, all my other profs at this point had at least seemed like dynamic individuals with personalities and lives. She is just flat, depressed 50-year-old suburban mom. So, while I was in the middle of that class, I was like, okay, I know I'm dumping this one in the middle of the Jewish one. I know I'm dumping this because I'm getting the same gen eds from the ethics one. So we started looking at other classes of like what to like get, because I would have only had 3 then, and I can do 4. So I might as well try to get more gen eds, right? And so I was looking and seeing what classes were available. And there's the intercultural communication one, and I was trying to register for it because there was an opening and it had a good rate my professor and stuff. And so I was trying to register for it, but I realized in the middle of the Jewish class that like I would need to unenroll from the Jewish class I was currently in to be able to register for the intercultural communication one. And I was like, I didn't know what the hell to do, because I felt really weird being in the middle of a class and then like, what if she gets like some email about like, you know, imagine like subject line, Jake Stalvey has unenrolled from your class. And it's like, we already did attendance. This is a small classroom. She can very easily look over and see my ginger bald ass head. And so I was like, ugh. So I was just staring the whole time at that open seat for the other class. Luckily, second I got out, come back to apartment here, and I just dump the class and go for the intercultural communication one. The intercultural communication one, I've only been to once, as I mentioned. Oh, but the contemporary ethics one, let me talk about that more. No, sorry, I'm ping-ponging. Let me talk about the one other thing with the Jewish Ways of Life class is like, look, how do I say this? I think, at least from my own perspective, ever since the start of high school, really, I have noticed more sometimes, or I have found it more noticeable when there is normally a boy in the class who is on the spectrum and participates a lot. And, you know, that's fine. Hell, I could maybe consider myself that boy sometimes. But there's like a certain character of one that you'll sometimes see in classes where it's like they're always interjecting and saying something. And I think my first real understanding experience with it was I was in a class for a few weeks in in freshman year of high school, where there was like 2 boys who were probably on the spectrum, who were frequently speaking up in class and participating and adding their own thoughts. But sometimes they are disruptive, or they will cause, like, or it'll be irrelevant, or it'll be funny, and then you get the whole class laughing and the whole class distracted. And in freshman year in math class, there was 2 of them, 2 of these boys who had these similar characteristics, but they had very different personalities. And what I saw play out is that the other kids in the class would just kind of like poke them on to like, it's a weird thing where you see these people. I need to not, you see someone, these people is a bad way of phrasing it. You see someone who is different. I'm fucking up the phrasing of this. It becomes something where their participation and role in the class becomes more of like the court jester than an equal member of the class, at least in my perception of it, where like the person interjecting and adding their own comments and stuff, it's like they're normally disrupting the class, but then the class is either like a lot of the class and, you know, popular white boys, sports boys, whatever, they're like laughing from the interjection, but it's kind of this thing of like 70% of the time it feels like they're laughing at them rather than with them. And it's just uncomfortable. It's like, I think if you're able to kind of see through it, it's a little bit uncomfortable, at least in my perception, feeling, perspective. I don't know. It's just a weird vibe. And so I bring up the freshman one in freshman year of high school because it was like two boys who were frequently interjecting, very different personality types, or like, you know, I don't know. I forget their personalities now, but it felt like one was a bit more like, I forget their name. One of them, his name was like Adam, I think, or a something. I don't know, but it just became this thing of like the rest of the class and the people sitting near them would kind of like instigate these two boys on so that they would like get yappy with each other. And it felt like laughing at them rather than with them. And that kind of put a real bad taste in my mouth. And so, I don't know. I guess I've largely avoided that. Not intentionally, but I just have the past few years. And so, in this class, in the Jewish Ways of Life class, there was a boy who would frequently interject and make own little quips or comments and stuff. He started like halfway through the class. I forgot his name. It kind of wound up being this thing of like, he would add his own little whatever. It was like, what was it? What are the Pistons? Are the Pistons a sports team? It's a basketball team. They weren't the Pistons. I'm just using the Pistons as an example. It's like one kid came in wearing a Pistons jersey or something. And then this other, and he goes and talks and introduces himself, whatever. And then the other boy, when he's talking, says how like, oh, you know, you with the Pistons jersey, like blah, 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 blah. Like, we'll talk. We'll probably be great friends. And it's like, I can't tell if it's a joke or not. Maybe that's my fault for not being able to understand the tone or something. I think it's a joke. Yeah, no, I think it was a joke. I think it was a joke. But then like the boy hearing that was like, oh yeah. I don't know. I don't have a good enough memory to be able to explain this all out perfectly. But it was this like kind of weird back and forth that was like fine as an isolated thing. But then as the class continued on, there would be someone else who would say something. And then it was like loosely familiar to whatever the boy wearing the Pistons jersey had said. And so then the other one, let's say his name is Dan. I don't think his name is Dan. But Dan then interjects and like, oh, are you also a Pistons fan or something? And whatever. And then like another sentence or two. And then it's like the class starts doing the like little half awkward, half genuine kind of chuckles. And then the teacher kind of quietly says something to like the front few rows about how like how like, oh, I think this will be fun for the semester. Not like a putting him down kind of way. Well, not as condescending as what I just said in the this will be fun for the semester. Not like that has have a stronger like, oh brother kind of thing. It was a similar sentiment, but not as extreme. And overall, it just kind of gave me a really weird vibe. Like, that was like, I don't love this dynamic. I don't love observing this dynamic. Because again, to me, it kind of feels like this thing of what is laughing at them versus with them. It certainly felt like it was leaning a lot more towards the at them. But then you contrast that with, I'll give an example for the writing for television class. I think midway through the week, another boy who I assume is on the spectrum because of, I think I have a, let me say this, I think I have a good spectrum dar, I guess. Not a gaydar, a spectrum dar. Because of, you know, some noticeable things, like in class discussions suddenly being very loud. Like he joined in the middle, like this past week. And so then in a class thing when we were reading the Big Bang Theory script, he happened to get assigned Sheldon. And then when he was reading the Sheldon lines, he was doing pretty damn good. And I heard the teacher just like quietly say to like the few people around him, like, how about this casting? And it's like, that is something that it's similar. It's kind of the same. And also, to be fair to him, I don't totally know if like he was getting the same vibes I was when he was really nailing the Sheldon impression. But it's something of like, that feels a bit more laughing with than at, you know? I don't know. It was just this weird thing with the Jewish class that like adding on top of everything else, I was like, I don't really want to like have to deal with this, you know? Or what was it? I didn't avoid this a lot during high school. I had it in some like junior year, I think. You know, it's just like something you see, like whatever. I'm not being like, fuck you. Whatever. It's different personalities. What, you know, it's okay. Like I don't super mind the disruption itself of like someone interjecting, adding questions, whatever, comments. Yeah, it gets a little annoying, but like I can suck it up. It's fine. I think it's just when you add the kind of class dynamic of everyone laughing at them or with them, and that's when it gets weird to me. And I'm like, I don't like this. I don't like this. So that was a Jewish History of Life class.